We're doing a video essay today, and it's about wanting a bigger life but not really knowing exactly what you want. And I'm also doing a major deep dive on Clarice Lispector, kind of within that realm of existentialism and things of that nature. So that is the breadth of today's video. And this is just my little introduction to you. I am currently making a gift guide like everyone else. I think gift guides are really fun to look at and read. I think they're very comforting and cozy. So I'm making one because I think I have good taste and I do give good gifts. So stay tuned for that. If I do have it created by the time I make this video, I'll post it in my description, but if not, it'll be up next week for sure. Some very quick book updates. These two finally came in the mail. I Only Believe in Myself and also Glass, Irony, and God by Anne Carson. Very, very, very excited to read these. I've already started this and I am very addicted to this book right now. I'm also reading Anne Dillard's The Writing Life just because I am so immersed in my writing world right now and I love reading books about writing on writing by some of my favorite writers. So I've been enjoying this. I mentioned, I think in my last video, this is one of the books on my TBR, Why This World by Clarice Lispector. This is essentially like a biography of her life, which if you're as obsessed with her as I am, I highly recommend this. I also went to the French bookstore. You know what's funny is in my 2025 goals from earlier this year, I was like, I want to get better at my French. I took so many years of it in college and had not a great teacher and missed the grammar, missed the accent, missed everything. So I'm going to be doing French here in New York City. There is a very cute French school called Cuckoo down in the West Village area or Soho area. So I think I'm going to be doing that starting very soon. I did go to the French bookstore today. I also have some thrifted French children's books on the way because I think that when you're learning a language, at least for me, I love nostalgia and cartoons and things like that. So I learn really well with stuff in that realm. So I ordered some of that, but I also found these two French versions of Clarice Lispector's books. I found Agua Viva, and one of the reasons why I bought this as well is because they included photos of her like original writing of this book. So like the original cover, but also her notes and things that she created. So I'm excited to kind of like refresh all of my French and get fluent enough to start reading like philosophical French books. That's kind of like my main goal. I also found this one. So wait. I just hope that I can get back to a point where I can read at this level again. But I love these covers. Anyways, that's enough for now. I hope that you enjoy this essay. Let me know if there's anything specific that you want me to cover. Thanksgiving is also really soon. Maybe I'll make a Thanksgiving video. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. I have always lived at the edges of myself, and I am someone who cannot do moderation. I'm either all in or completely disinterested, and every time I try to find balance, it just feels like I'm living a lie. I think people talk often about balance, like they are in pursuit of this peace in their life, but I think it's much closer to paralysis. And it's strange how we romanticize certainty, like the goal of being alive is to finally know exactly what you want. And I used to believe that. Now I think it's just kind of like a way to avoid feeling lost. If you are familiar with philosophy at all, this is called the absurd. Really that moment when you feel like life has no fixed meaning, but you keep living anyway. And Camus said that we have to imagine Sisyphus happy in his book, The Myth of Sisyphus, where he is rolling this rock up a hill to find purpose in the repetition itself. And it sounds poetic and philosophical until you feel it for yourself, and until you have to roll that rock up the hill and you wake up one day and you realize that you've been pushing this same metaphorical rock for years, and somehow you still find yourself caring about getting it to the top. I wrote a long form essay about this whole topic on my Substack, and I did a deep dive on Clarice Lispector, all of her books, and I included a lot of personal thoughts that I have about this topic. So if you're curious about that, if you're curious about this subject, I recommend that you check it out. And while you're there, it would mean everything to me if you subscribed both to my YouTube and my Substack. The absurd isn't necessarily about despair. It's about the tension between these two truths, that we crave meaning and that the universe doesn't owe us any. And yet we keep going, we fall in love, we make art, we chase careers, we set our alarms each morning. And that rebellion that Camus is talking about is not optimism, but it's this level of defiance. It's choosing to live even when nothing guarantees that it's worth it. And some of us are just built for that kind of tension. You know, we're not content with surface level satisfaction. We need to feel like our lives mean something even when we suspect that they don't. We can't shut off that hunger for significance even when it hurts to keep it alive. And I think there are multiple people in this world, right? There are some people who need this belief and some people who need truth. And I have never been the kind of person who's been able to choose. I want the comfort of faith and I want the honesty of doubt at the same time. And I want to believe that life matters, but I also can't stop noticing the silence underneath everything. And I think that, maybe that's what it means to live with the absurd. It's really about holding both truths in your hand without letting either one win. It's to keep wanting even when you know that there's nothing waiting at the end of it. And I think to live inside of this contradiction without needing to essentially resolve it. So this is why Clarice Lispector very much resonates with me, and not, in a religious way, but I think, or a spiritual way, but in the sense that reading her feels like I am reading something that is so sacred, and it is something that doesn't really teach you, but it inevitably will transform you, because she didn't really try to explain life. She tried to inhabit it. Every sentence that she creates feels like she is writing from the inside of this experience instead of being, surrounded by it. The characters that she creates don't just think about awareness, they collapse under the weight of it, and they reach the point of they reach the point where consciousness will fold in on itself and they have seen too much. And in her book, The Passion According to G.H., this woman kills a cockroach and begins to disintegrate. And it's not just about disgust or guilt, it's really about what happens when you stare so deeply into the world that really borders between the self and everything else that it dissolves. She's really forced to confront the fact that her identity and her name, her routines, her sense of control were never real. They were just the scaffolding that she built to survive the vastness of being alive. And that's what I love so much about her, is that she does what philosophers spend their whole lives trying to reason their way towards. Camus, for example, he does it through logic. Kierkegaard does it through faith, but Clarice does it through feeling. And she shows what happens when intellect collapses and all that's left is this raw level of perception. reading her really feels like you're standing at the edge of something that you can't quite name or put your finger on. It's like the second before a thought becomes language. She captures that very liminal space and that line that is blurred between knowing and unknowing, and she stays there throughout her books, even when she knows that it hurts to read them. So when I read her, I get the same feeling that I get when I read something, in philosophy that is rooted in phenomenology. It's that sense that everything, time and color and sound exist itself. It's just, they all exist. And they're just kind of vibrating just beneath the surface of what it means to be alive. Husserl is a philosopher who called it returning to the things themselves, which is really stripping away theory to experience life as it is before it gets interpreted. And Clarice kind of lived there permanently. She didn't just analyze experiences, she really became it. She's really what phenomenology looks like if it were to be in motion, this consciousness as an event instead of a thought. And maybe that's why she kind of unnerves people in her writing, because she reminds you that being alive isn't an idea, it's a condition. It's too close, it's too physical, it's too much. And she takes philosophy out of the head and she puts it back into the body. And that is what is so profound about all of her writing. This also makes me think about the internet and this endless demand to define, announce, brand yourself. Every thought has to be a caption. Every feeling is this form of content, and it's kind of completely antithetical of what Clarice believed in. She thought that the self could only survive in silence, and that, if you exist, that who you are exists most vividly when no one else is watching. I think about that every time I scroll, how we are all performing this level of coherence, and that we're curating proof that we have this stable identity, that we know what we want, we know who we are, we know what we believe in, and it's exhausting. Not just because it's fake, but because it asks us to translate the chaos of being human into something that could be understood by an algorithm. I think that's why so many of us are so exhausted. Philosophers have argued about being and becoming and essence, but Clarice said it better in one line where she says, I am before, I am almost, I am never. And it sounds very simple until you realize that it is everything that existentialism has ever tried to say. That being isn't something that you arrive at, it's something that you endure, that you are always on the verge of becoming and never, quite completed. I think that's where the truth of wanting a bigger life really lives. It's not about your achievements or ambitions. It's not about this fantasy of stability or control. It's about refusing numbness, and it's about staying awake even when that awareness hurts you sometimes, because I think to exist is to oscillate between knowing and not knowing, and between being a creation and completely collapsing, between love and detachment. We spend so much time trying to fix the swing of life when the swing is the point. And I think Clarice really understood that. She knew that the ache of defining yourself is just another way of fear, of choosing fear, and she chose to live in that space and to write from that space where nothing is really settled and every thought really trembles, before it is turned into this language that us as readers can understand. And so I'm learning that that is the space that I want to live from as well. And so yes, I want a bigger life. I don't know what I want. Maybe I do know what I want, but I just feel lost in all of the things that I want. And I think that that's okay. And not knowing is the closest that we will ever get to the truth of who we are as people. And I think that wanting itself is the proof that we are still alive and that we are human. So if you want to start reading Clarice Lispector, or if you just want to understand why she hits so hard, you don't need to read everything. I think, she wrote 11 different novels, maybe more that I'm not thinking of right now. It's just this mountain of short stories and decades of newspaper columns, but there are a few books that really feel directly connected to what I've been talking about with you today, and it's themes of like this ache of wanting and the discomfort of consciousness and the impossibility of ever feeling whole. One of those books is Near to the Wild Heart. I have her whole face here. I have her top half here, her bottom half here, and if you flip it, there's another face too. Anyways, so Near to the Wild Heart really feels like the beginning because it is. It's her first novel and you can feel like this fever of it. It's about a girl named Joanna who grows up too aware of herself, too alive to fit inside the world that she's been given. And she wrote this book when she was 23 years old. It's not about plot, it's about perception, and it's about that exact moment when you realize that you're separate from everything around you. And when you read it, it kind of feels like you're waking up for the first time and realizing awareness itself is painful. It's a wound. There's another book that she wrote called Chandelier, which kind of turns that awareness inward until you really start to feel yourself decaying and rotting. And this character named Virginia, she's trapped inside of her own mind and haunted by repetition and memory. And Clarice uses domestic life as this metaphor for the ways that we cage ourselves. So it's very heavy and dense, it's suffocating, but I think that is the point of the book, is she's showing how self-awareness can start as this pseudo-freedom and end, in confinement. So next we have The Apple in the Dark, which kind of feels like the reconstruction that comes after this breakdown. Martin may or may not have killed his wife in the story, and it doesn't really matter because the real story is what happens when you lose all sense of your identity and like who you are, and like how you build meaning in life from this silence of confusion. So Clarice kind of asks him if guilt can become creation and if meaning can exist without language. So it's really about starting over when you have nothing left to name yourself with. The other book that I mentioned earlier in this video is The Passion According to G.H., which, like I mentioned, is about a woman who kills a cockroach and her whole identity collapses. And it sounds very absurd until you realize that it's exactly what consciousness feels like. It's that unbearable moment when you see yourself too clearly. So she kind of turns this annihilation into something more revolutionary. So it's not really about death, it's about waking up and realizing that the self that you thought that you were is just the scaffolding. And she kind of proves that ecstasy and emptiness can be the same thing and can mean the same thing. Agua Viva, a very thin short story, is her most radical work. It is the purest expression of what she believed, and it has no plot or characters or structures. It's just, it kind of feels like a heartbeat, like one long unbroken address to the reader. And she's trying to capture what she calls the instant of alive, or like the instant alive, this brief moment before your experience becomes a memory. So yeah, all of her writing, especially in this book, just kind of feel like she's saying, I don't need to make sense. I just need to be, and I just need to exist. So I actually really love this one. And finally, The Hour of the Star, which is her last novel, and you can really feel the nearness of death in like every line that she creates here. It's about a poor typist named Macabea who is told through the voice of a male narrator who keeps like interrupting himself and doubting himself and contradicting himself. Yeah, I think she really uses this story to dismantle everything that she's ever written about identity, class, gender, like all of those things. It's really her final confrontation with meaning, and she's asking what it means to tell the truth when language is already breaking apart. So yeah, I think, when I think about Clarice's work as a whole, it just feels like one long study of wanting and desire. Every character is written like they are reaching for something that they can't really name. I don't know. Her writing just feels very profound. So if you're looking for a type of literature that feels genre defying in a way, I highly recommend just diving deep into Clarice Lispector. I did a whole video on YouTube about all of her work, so I'm kind of trying to keep it brief and not wanting to like repeat myself. So hopefully this was still helpful for you. I really wanted to highlight more so the fact that like I think so many of us in life want something more, especially if you're here. I feel like a lot of you are smart, intellectual, deep, insightful, thoughtful, beautiful, all of these things. But I think many of you also crave a bigger life and a life that has more meaning. And I struggle with this frequently. So I just wanted to kind of put it out into the ether and just let you know that you're not alone. Because it's something that I still work on, despite knowing these things. It's not as easy to kind of adopt this mindset and this, you know, realization of what it means to exist and be alive on this earth. I have always been the kind of person who overthinks the little things, basically like what I eat, maybe how much sleep I've got, or whether I'm drinking enough water. And I love the idea of routines, but I don't love clutter, especially when it comes to self-care and taking care of my diet and everything else. I really want things that are simple and traceable and things that actually make sense. So this is why I have stuck with Ritual, and you've probably seen their little yellow bottles everywhere, but they are one of the few supplement brands that I actually trust because they're transparent about where they get their ingredients, where they're from, why they're there. And I also appreciate that everything is vegan friendly, gluten-free, and made without any GMOs or added sugar. And the best part is right now they are doing their Black Friday Cyber Monday sale early, which means that you can get 40% off site-wide. So if you've been curious, this is really the best time to try it. So for me, I started with Essential for Women 18+. It's their clinically backed multivitamin for women that helps fill in key nutrient gaps. And it's USP verified, which is one of the highest marks of quality that you can get. I take 2 capsules every morning, and it's honestly one of the easiest parts of my day. It's gentle on my stomach, and it doesn't have that weird aftertaste that a lot of vitamins can have sometimes. I don't know, it just makes me feel like I'm taking really good care of myself. I also really enjoy the Symbiotic Plus, which is their 3-in-1. There's probiotics, prebiotics, postbiotics, and it comes in a delayed release capsule that's designed to reach the colon and not the stomach, so all of the good bacteria actually survive and do their thing. I take it in the afternoon, usually with lunch, and I can tell like if I forget to take it for a few days because it just helps me feel more balanced. Okay, last but not least, their Essential Protein 18+. This is the one that I reach for after workouts. I work out a lot every day. It's not something that I talk about a lot on this channel, but it is one of the most important parts of my routine. Or on a busy day when I need something quick but clean. It's a plant-based protein made from pea protein with the amino acid L-methionine, which together form this complete amino acid profile. So this basically means that your body is actually getting what it needs to build and repair muscle. This has 20 grams of protein per serving. It tastes surprisingly smooth. There's no chalkiness or weird artificial sweetness. So if you've been meaning to try Ritual, or if you already use one of their products and want to try another one, now is really the time because of their Black Friday Cyber Monday sale where everything is 40% off. So I will leave the link below in my description and put it on the screen as well so you can grab it easily. Thank you again to Ritual for sponsoring a portion of this video and for making products that I can actually stand behind.